What's up, everyone? In this video, I'm going to talk about the natal moon in Scorpio. So that means that in your natal chart, you were born with the moon in Scorpio. Sorry, if you have this placement. Not really. It's not so bad. When we talk about moon in Scorpio, we are talking about, well, first of all, let me back up. So you may or may not know your natal moon sign sort of represents your inner personality, your kind of private reactions to things, your inner world. It's sort of the sensory, emotional, inner experience that you have in relation to everything going on around you, that you may express externally, or people may observe, or they may not. With Scorpio moons, it can be tough. Some people say they have a good poker face. In my experience, I think if a Scorpio moon is experiencing something or going through a strong emotion, I think it's very hard for them to just keep it under wraps. I think most basically, we'll talk about some of the basics of a Scorpio moon placement, and generally, you're going to be a very emotionally intense person. Moon in Scorpio is not a really natural place for the moon to be. So you're very emotional, very intense, very broody. Little things that another person might, subtly be bothered by can sometimes trigger like visceral, almost like a physical emotional reaction inside of you. They tend to be very intuitive. They're very good at picking up on things that are unsaid. They're very good generally at reading people. They're very, I would say, they're not like light. They're not light people in the sense like they don't like small talk. They don't like to keep things surface level. Scorpio moon has an extremely strong desire to really connect with other people, and so they don't do super well in sort of group situations, or group situations, especially when there's a lot of new people that they're meeting, or maybe some kind of like semi acquaintances. Not that they can't be in that situation. I just think, like, in terms of getting their social needs nourished, they need more than just kind of that group friendship dynamic. I think for a Scorpio moon, they really need to be someone's friend. They really need to get to know them one on one without other people there. They really want to know what makes people tick. They want to know people's secrets. They just want to know you deeply, and it's not really, a bad thing. It can be boundary crossing at sometimes. Like a Scorpio moon is going to have to learn how to manage that, and I'll get into that a little bit later in this video. This generally makes Scorpio moons like pretty good friends to have on your side. They are extremely loyal to the people that they care about. They're the person that you could call if some crisis happened. You're going through something rough, you're depressed, went through a breakup, you've had a death in the family, whatever it is, you call up your Scorpio moon friend. They're never going to be like, ooh, awkward. I don't really know what to say to this. They may not have the sage wisdom advice to tell you. Sometimes there really isn't any in a lot of life situations, but they will be there. They will show up. They will show up regardless, for the most part. So that's pretty cool. Now, a Scorpio moon gets a little bit of a bad rap. They get a lot of people say that they are let's see, like kind of, they can be kind of controlling or jealous, vindictive. They can sometimes be a little bit toxic. Um, what do we mean by this? So I think in some ways it's a little bit of a one-dimensional view of Scorpio moons. Like, yes, they can be all those things, but a lot also has to do with the individual, right? It has to do with the rest of their natal chart. It has to do with the rest of their personality, their maturity, and also, how they've chosen to work with the Scorpio moon energy. You know, Astrology is it's a language of symbols. It doesn't necessarily just lay out some predetermined path of destiny. It doesn't predict the future. It just is a language of symbols, showing us particular energies that we have to work with. And it's sort of up to the individual to, practice that and figure out how to be, the best version of themselves, assuming that's what they want. Some people don't give a shit, and that's okay. But going back to what I was saying, so what we would call like unevolved Scorpio moons, they can be extremely like jealous, right? If they're like in a relationship or again, someone does something that bothers them, they have a strong tendency to like internalize that stuff and think that it's about them and think that everything is like an affront against them. So say, for example, Scorpio moon has a friend, and the friend, went out and did something with another friend the Scorpio moon really wanted to do. Scorpio moon didn't get invited. Maybe that friend just forgot or like didn't think the Scorpio moon would be interested in it. The Scorpio moon will sometimes have this like intense, very intense feeling of jealousy and betrayal that they don't necessarily need to internalize, because it might not have even have been about them. Nobody's perfect. Maybe the person just forgot or whatever. But they'll think like, oh my God, this person betrayed me, and I'm so mad at them. That's kind of an example of like a sort of an immature Scorpio moon. As the Scorpio moon holder kind of gets a little bit older, hopefully they sort of start learning that these intense emotions that they have due to their natal placement are kind of theirs to work with. And they're not, as much as Scorpio moons have such an intense desire to really merge with another person, they really, in order to kind of actually get that, ironically, Scorpio moons almost have to like take a step back and realize that no matter how good or bad their intimate relationships may be throughout their life, they're ultimately always the ones that are going to have to be responsible for their own happiness and for their own emotions. And I think particularly Scorpio moons will go through a lot of, may not necessarily, but may go through a lot of trial and error in romantic relationships. As I mentioned, like in the friend example, Scorpio moons have such a strong fear of betrayal and they fear rejection. And so they don't really like necessarily being vulnerable or like exposing themselves emotionally as you kind of need to in a romantic relationship. They will if they like you over time, but it's not comfortable for them. And so when they do that over time and they build in a romantic relationship, that's when these kind of challenges of managing the jealousy and the control and the fear of betrayal really kind of come into play. I think a Scorpio moon is going to try extremely hard to, not get thrown out of the ship, right? Not get the rug pulled out from under them. They never really want that feeling, they never want that experience. But what's kind of funny is it's actually like that fear of getting the rug pulled out from them. It's that fear of someone just picking up and leaving one day. It's that fear of betrayal that's actually much worse than, you know, the rug actually getting pulled out. Scorpio moons have a tremendous ability to survive through crisis, to reinvent themselves through crisis. Um, you know, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which is the planet of regeneration and, you know, clearing of the earth only to like build anew atop. You know, it's constant cycles of metaphorical death and rebirth and growth. And so Scorpio moons can really, really harness that. And as more mature Scorpio moons kind of continue along their path, they sort of recognize that and they get less, they're a little bit less volatile and a little bit less, you know, like so tightly engaged on things, and they stop trying to control things as much. I will say, like, on the plus side, you know, this makes for like a very loyal partner, a very loving partner. More generally, I think Scorpio moons can be very creative and inspirational, and they're not afraid of the dark. They're not afraid of taboos. They're not afraid of things that go against the grain. They are, you know, usually part of whatever sort of social movements are going on at the time. They love kind of challenging the status quo. They just can be a little freaking moody and intense, and they can shoot themselves in the foot sometimes, which is going to just take some trial and error. So if you are a Scorpio moon, sorry, but it's also a blessing. Hang in there. When things seem to knock you down, just get right back up and keep going, and you will gain a tremendous strength from that kind of continued cycle of trial and error and death and kind of rebirth. If you are friends with a Scorpio moon or are in a romantic relationship with a Scorpio moon, they, you know that they are an extremely loyal partner. They love you a lot, but that, you know, not every Scorpio moon has, you know, totally worked out that energy within themselves. So sometimes when they just act like a little crazy, just keep all that in mind. Doesn't mean that you should tolerate it. You need to set strong boundaries with them, and let them know like what is and isn't okay. But I don't know. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight. It's also the first video, astrology video that I posted. I'm going to keep posting more, not just on Scorpio, but hopefully on some other things too. Any comments, feedback, whatever, drop a comment. And if you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Awesome. Take care.